Guys, we are doing the most important tier ranking of all time. Godzilla. Look at that beautiful Godzilla up there with all his little baby Godzillas up there. He's so damn cute. All right, guys, and a list that I want to do forever is the Godzilla films, and there are so many that I want to break them up between eras. And this one we're going to do is the Showa era, which is the beginning of Godzilla, the start of it, the cheesiness, the love, the happiness, the flying kicks with the tail. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. But to do this list, I have to be honest. I have seen some of these movies recently because I love some of these movies. I think they're classics, and some of these movies I haven't seen in about 15 years. Do I remember all the movies? Well, I'm old, so kinda. But I do remember them enough that I remember the characters, or at least the monsters that Godzilla is mostly fighting in these movies. So to say that, I know it enough that I'm gonna rank them right now. And probably if I don't remember too much about it, I didn't really like it that much. So that's why we have the ranking in the tier list. If you haven't seen, this is my Godzilla shirt. I love this shirt. We'll get to this era, which is absolutely but let's talk about Showa first. All right, and we're just going to start off with the big one, the classic, the Godzilla. I think it's just Godzilla, not the Godzilla. But Godzilla is one of those movies that have always been possibly one of my favorite movies ever created of all time. I think it just has a lot of pluses. I mean, it has the classic black and white, which is a huge benefit. The human characters work really well here. You actually care about them, which is something I can't say about every Godzilla film. And I actually think the brief appearance of Godzilla works to its advantage, kind of like Jaws, which is another movie that I absolutely love. You don't see the big monster all too much, which makes him more horrifying when you do see him. And the ending is one of the most haunting endings ever because Godzilla in this is very much a monster that you don't cheer on, that you don't like, that you're scared of. And the ending works because, I don't want to spoil, I mean, this movie is like 80 years old almost, but the fact that what happens to both the main character in human form and monster form is kind of terrifying and really a big just metaphor to what happened back in World War II. So I actually really loved the ending to this movie. It's haunting, beautiful, scary, all of that combined. So saying that, that's pretty easy to see where this one's going to end up. It's going in the king of the monsters. So let's talk about Godzilla Raids again. After the huge success of the first one, they're like, hey, we got to put out another one. And, you know, American Hollywood isn't the only one who puts out shit after they become popular. Japan is not like, you know, oh yeah, we made a grand success, let's not make another one. Wait, let's put out another one. So this is kind of the staple of what Godzilla becomes. This is very much a monster versus monster film, and the humans are kind of pushed aside. You do get some characters in here, but they're really not as important as the first movie. What is important is that we get Anguirus. I always say his name wrong, which sucks because he is absolutely one of my favorite designs ever. I think it's just the fact that he's on all fours makes him so different than Godzilla, and the fact he has spikes on his back, like that's pretty awesome looking. He just looks like a really pissed off like fucking hedgehog. So I really like the design of Anguirus. Ah! I know all your kaiju fans are just like, you fucking idiot, you can't pronounce shit. And you'd be right. But saying that, I really did like his design, and I also really like that this movie can be pretty brutal at times. I think the brutality of this movie, the biting, the clawing, the ripping, is the benefit to the movie. At the same time, that's where the negatives come in for me. See, the editing in this movie is really weird, so they speed up the fights, which make it look more vicious and like fast, but it also feels odd at points when they like get up ultra fast and you're like, whoa, how did he flip over? Is he a piece of cardboard? He's like, what the hell is happening? So stuff like that was a weird mix of editing, and I also thought that just the overall pacing of this movie wasn't the best. The highlight of this movie is the fights. But yeah, overall, it was a good movie. It's watchable. It's interesting to see it come right after Godzilla, which is a very human movie despite a monster being in it. This is definitely the monster bash, mash, lash, whatever you want to call them. Battle royales. No, I'm just kidding. Battle royales come later. What am I saying? Let's rank this one in the watchable because, again, I do enjoy it. I love the designs in this. But yeah, it's not the greatest. All right, so King Kong vs. Godzilla. The two kings go head to head, and this movie is cheesy, but it is memorable. I'll give it that. I do remember, like, I haven't seen this movie in over 10 years, but I do remember the electricity scene, and I think that highlights the epitome of Hollywood, the greatness, the on the level of Taxi Driver. But saying that, this movie's stupid as hell. It is really stupid. I think it knows that. I mean, the practical effects in here are old. I mean, this movie's old. I don't know. I don't really have much to say, but I never really loved this movie, but I like the fight scenes because they're so awful. Like, it's kind of that. I just don't really care about this movie. I don't know if I'd even put it in watchable because I didn't like it enough that I'd watch it again too often. But I did like the fight scenes, and I will watch those on YouTube by themselves. So I'm going to put it in only in for them fight scenes, baby. All right, so when I was making this list, this fucking poster took me by a loop. I was like, what the fuck is Godzilla versus the Thing? What is that? Like, what is it? And it took me a while to figure it out. Then I was just like, why don't I just type it in Google? And Google's like, Godzilla versus the Thing. And I looked at the poster. I'm like, I still don't know what the fuck this is. It's just like a question mark. And then I read that it's Godzilla versus Mothra. And I guess this was supposed to be like a secret. Like, ooh, what is Godzilla going to fight next? I'm just like, you could have just said fucking Mothra. I guess that's for the American audience. I guess it was like a big reveal, I guess. I don't know. Bad. This was way before I was born. But saying that, Mothra vs. Godzilla is pretty dope. Never did I think I would love a gigantic butterfly, but I do. I love Mothra. She's my girl. She's my homie. And I would ride for this bitch, you know? She's ready to blast Godzilla in the face with her freaking wings of justice. Okay, I'm going to stop. But really, Mothra is a beautiful, badass, awesome creature. One of my favorite kaiju ever, to be honest. I think it's just a mixture that is actually a pretty monster, and we don't usually get that in the kaiju world. And the movie itself is really good. It's not the greatest movie, but it's memorable. It has the, I believe this one has the twins, right? The little girls. Who sing to Mothra. I really like that. Now, I will be honest, I haven't watched this too often, but since I love Mothra so much, since this is the introduction of Mothra, and since she becomes a fan favorite, which she actually grows even more in the next few movies, and we're about to get to in a second, I have to put this in a kaiju of a good time. Which leads me right into King Ghidorah, or just Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. This is one of my most watched movies ever for Godzilla. The fact that it takes Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan to team up and fight King Ghidorah is just awesome. That's right, if you didn't watch this movie and you watch Godzilla King of the Monsters, the newer one, you're like, oh, hey, that sounds like the plot of that. And yeah, it is. But again, you know, this is obviously a lot older, so the fight scenes aren't as epic, but it is a really fun movie. I really like it. This is probably one of my most rewatched Showa Era Godzilla besides Godzilla the original. And I just like the idea of monsters teaming up to fight even a bigger threat. Something about that's so cool. So yeah, I really like this movie. I thought it was a great introduction to King Ghidorah. He was a menacing, evil looking bastard. You had Mothra and Godzilla and Rodan teaming up, which is so cool because you got a butterfly, a bird, and a dinosaur dragon looking motherfucker fighting a three-headed creature. I mean, this movie is the epitome of like the greatness of kaijus in the 60s. So yeah, I absolutely love this movie. We are going to put this in higher than a kaiju of a good time. We're going to put it in the King of Monsters, but behind the original. All right, so this one might get me some flack. The Invasion of the Astro-Monster. That's a stupid fucking title. This is one of my least favorite Godzilla films. I don't like space much. I don't like space much. Elon Musk is gonna come after me. I don't like the space setting for Godzilla, and so this movie didn't really do much for me. It brought back King Ghidorah, which people like. He was okay in here, but my major issue with this one is I really fucking hated the human characters. I know I haven't really mentioned the human characters in the last few, but this one made me hate them. Like, this is what made this movie hard to watch for me. So I did not like that. I did not like the space setting. I think it had Nick Adams, the actor, which is an American actor, came in. So I think it was a big one for a lot of people growing up, but for me, this was one of my least favorite watching. I pretty much would only watch this for the fight scenes, and that's pretty much it. I'd skip all the human shit. So yeah, this is a big old poops doops. I'll probably put it behind King Kong vs. Godzilla because the electricity part in Godzilla vs. King Kong or King Kong vs. Godzilla was amazing. Ebirah, horror of the deep, also known as Red Lobster vs. Godzilla, baby. I gotta say, I think this probably is the one that I watched the least ever growing up, in the Showa era at least, because looking at all these movies, I was like, yeah, I remember this scene, I remember that scene, I remember shit in this movie. I would say maybe it bored me Maybe the fact that a red lobster doesn't really fucking scare me. The fact that Godzilla probably would eat this guy for, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then, shit out the remains. I don't know. There's a bunch of factors in here, but I just think this movie maybe just didn't appeal to me as a kid, and it certainly didn't appeal to me when I had to watch a trailer to be like, who the fuck is this guy? And this thing I don't think ever reappears, or maybe it does, but yeah, red lobsters, they aren't really scary to me. So we're going to put this in the never really want to watch ever again. Boop. Son of Godzilla. Son of Godzilla. Son of a bitch. Listen, this movie holds a special place in my heart because I watched this a lot as a kid. I was a very young kid when I got into Godzilla, maybe like 3 or 4. But yeah, I remember Son of Godzilla as really loving it when I was a kid. But rewatching it about 6 years ago, it's not a good movie. It's not. It's not a good movie. Millennia. I don't want to say Baby Godzilla because there is a Baby Godzilla and he's adorable. This Godzilla, however, I'm just gonna call him Baby Godzilla because I can't pronounce anything. He's the ugliest little shit I've ever seen. Just the nastiest, ugliest, fucking horrifying creature. He's horrifying more than most of these monsters, and for that, I'm gonna put him watchable, but very low watchable because he's so ugly and I love him. All right, so Destroy All Monsters. This. One of my faves, baby. I think the fact that you have just like this battle royale setup. I think the fact that, back in the day we didn't have all these monster movies coinciding with each other and bringing a whole bunch of like cameos like MCU and stuff. That you had all these monsters that I was growing up with, watching Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan. I was watching other more indie monster films and also like Gamera and stuff. Well, Gamera wasn't in this. That would have made my day. But the fact that you had a battle royale where you're bringing all these monsters just to beat the shit out of each other, highly entertaining. Very fun. I love this movie. I think they even talk to each other like telepathically in this movie, the monsters, which is just fucking beautiful. Like, how do you not love that? So for me, this is one of the more fun movies. I've watched it a bunch of times. I watched it about 4 years ago for maybe the 8th or 9th time in my life. And I kind of want to watch it again. So that's a good sign for me. If I want to watch it again, even though I've seen it so many times. So yeah, Destroy All Monsters. We're going to put it in a kaiju of a good time. And I think I'm going to put it in front of Godzilla vs. Mothra because I think it's a more fun movie, even though they introduced Mothra. All right, so All Monsters Attack. I would argue if this is even really like a Godzilla film. I feel like Godzilla's like a cameo in here. It's a really weird film. I didn't watch it much growing up, but when I bought the Showa collection, I rewatched it, and I don't know if I consider this a Godzilla film. It just doesn't feel like it. It also has Godzilla's kid in it again, and like I said, he's ugly as fuck, and that's beautiful. But yeah, I think it's just badly edited too. It's just not a very good film. I don't even know if I'd say it's for just the fight scenes because I don't remember the fight scenes being very good. So I'm gonna have to say I probably never watch this again. This is a skip-a-rula. All right, so Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I know what you're all thinking. It's Godzilla versus the Poopy Monster. Poopy Monster! But yeah, this movie's kind of on the nose. I mean, it was trying to talk about pollution and stuff, and I thought it did a respectable job on that. I think Biollante does a far better job, and we'll get to that in the next ranking. But yeah, this film kind of just very on the nose about that. Saying that, the monsters are also a fucking shit design, so I don't know how much... I don't know how much they were banking on this monster sticking around after this, but it's literally just garbage and poopy all in one, and that's just not a monster that I ever want to see again. I don't want to see, when I see shit, I want to flush it, but I don't want to see it again. There is a really cool scene with the Godzilla versus him near the end of the movie that I really enjoyed, and the fact that this monster does do some damage to Godzilla, it's respectable in the fact that most monsters get their ass kicked by Godzilla, but this guy actually stepped up and was like, "Yeah, I got you." So yeah, it was an okay movie. It's I'd say watchable, but very low watchable. Right there with Son of Godzilla, it's not very good. So Godzilla versus Gigan or Gigan, I think it's Gigan. I know, man. I know you're watching this. Like, this guy really doesn't know how to pronounce anything, and I know. But this is a fan favorite, I feel. I feel like a lot of people like this more than I do. I don't dislike this movie. I think it's fine. I think it's a enjoyable time. You get some really cool designs with Gigan. But yeah, this movie just never really resonated with me in terms of like when I'm like, I gotta rewatch it. But it's certainly watchable. It's certainly a good time. I'd probably actually put it in front of all of them except Godzilla raids again. So yeah, it's a serviceable, fun little Godzilla versus flick. Just not one of my favorite. So Godzilla versus Megalon is another one that I watched a lot as a kid, and I really remember loving it. Rewatching it as an adult, not as much. I think the thing is I never really liked Jaeger. Is it Jaeger or Jaeger? I think it's Jaeger. So that character didn't really do much for me. And Megalon with his fucking drills, his hands. He's a fucking cockroach with drills on his hand. You know, I want to know what you guys were when you made these designs. But this film is a lot of fun. I'd say that. This is why I like this film, is because it's enjoyable. The fight scenes are super goofy and fun. This is the famous, if you don't know, the kick where Godzilla's on his tail and he's like, woo, and he kicks that motherfucker in the face. Beautiful. Saying that, it's not the greatest film, but if you're just in it for a kaiju of a good time, you know, just watching kaijus beat the shit out of each other, this one actually is pretty well done and silly, fun, and dumb is my beautiful name. So we're gonna go in a kaiju of a good time, but lower, definitely lower than the other two because it's not as good. All right, so Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. This is actually a really solid film. I think the fact that we got to see like a clone of Godzilla before it was revealed to be Mechagodzilla, a robotic version, was really interesting. At first, we were like, "Who the fuck is this? Who's this Godzilla?" And I thought that was cool, the reveal and everything. As a kid, I was like, you know, like I was like, "Holy shit, there's two Godzillas!" And you know, kind of like the Mothra versus Godzilla, as is not my favorite Godzilla movie, but the fact that we're introduced to Mothra is awesome. This movie, the fact that we're introduced to Mechagodzilla, actually really helps my next era of Godzilla to bring in one of my favorite, if not favorite movie, we'll get to that soon, of the entire franchise. But saying that, I think Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is a good time. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a solid film. I'd probably put it actually right behind Destroy All Monsters as one of the more rewatchable, more interesting, and more fun films of this era. And we're going to end the list with Terror of Mechagodzilla. I think this one was a weak follow-up. Funny enough, I think I only watched this once when I was a kid, and then I watched it again with the collection. And I think this one's a little bit more forgettable. I think they tried to follow up the success of Mechagodzilla because it was a success. People love that character, the idea of it. And I also like the idea of Mechagodzilla, but this film was not that. This was a very quick follow-up, and it actually, I don't know if it was financially successful because this kind of stopped the Godzilla films for 10 years. And it ended the era, and I don't think on a very high note. So yeah, this one is not great, but I do enjoy the fight scenes for what they are, so I'm going to put it in only for the fight scenes because I don't think it's as bad as those two down there. Those are pretty shit. So yeah, that's my list of the Showa era. Now, I will be the first to admit this is not my favorite era. You know, I'd have to say this is one of the lower eras for me. I know there's only like 4 or maybe 5. I think that's a solid era. You know, it started a lot of different kaijus, which is very good. I mean, the fact that we still have major kaijus like Godzilla, obviously, but having big staple names like King Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan, King Kong. Well, King Kong was before this, but you know what I'm saying. Like these characters, the fact that they have a name for themselves and they're still prevalent in today's pop culture is really great. And these movies came out, some of these 60, 70 years ago, right? Or is my math really off? But yeah, you know, I'm just looking at the list, and I'm really happy where most of these landed. The Showa era, I think, is a very watchable era. I think it's fun, cheesy, you know, have a good time, and a lot of these movies made me who I am today in terms of a kaiju fan. I would say the top 6, the kaiju of a good time, and the King of the Monsters, those I will rewatch multiple times again throughout my life, probably, whether they're classics like Godzilla, the original, or King Ghidorah. Those are probably my 2 favorite, but I really love Destroy All Monsters and Mechagodzilla. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. I really recommend these all. If you don't know, they have a Showa collection of all these Godzilla films, and I think usually it's like 170, but you usually can get on sale for about 100 around there. And you know, this is a lot of films. This is 17 films. Sorry, 15 films. Saying that, still, that's a lot of films. For $15, basically, again, 15 films for like $8 each, something like that. Oof, my fucking math is bad today. What am I saying? Go check these out. Or, if you've seen most of these films, put your list below, or just put your top 3 that you love. That's fine, too, because there's a lot of films. Some of these you probably don't even want to think about again. I'm looking at you. Attack all monsters. All monsters attack. What the hell fucking accent was that? Jesus Christ. All right. You guys have a great day. Next up is the big era. The one. Possibly my favorite. I'm really excited for the next video, but give me some time. I'm going to actually rewatch the entire Godzilla series from then on. So I have it fresh in my head. I can go a little bit more deeper into those movies. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and list yours below. And I'll see you next time for the next Godzilla film. Wow, that was a little racist.